All right, imagine waking up to an email offering you 8 months of pay, no work required, if you agree to resign today. I know it may sound tempting, but what if staying means risking job security and massive changes ahead? The Trump administration's federal buyout offer is shaking up the workforce, and you need to know the full story before making this life-changing decision. So in this video, I'm going to be taking a deep dive into some of the significant changes as it relates to federal employees across the nation and the Trump administration's recently announced buyout program aimed to be able to reshape the federal workforce. So if you are a federal employee, if you know someone who is, this information is going to be crucial. So let me go ahead and talk a little bit about the background and where this all started. So on January 28th of 2025, the Trump administration initiated what's called a deferred resignation program, and it was offering it to federal employees and giving them the option to be able to resign voluntarily in exchange for a severance package. And this move is part of a broader effort to be able to reduce the size of the federal government and encourage a return to in-person work. So let's talk about who's eligible and who this is going to impact. So the buyout program is available to nearly all full-time federal employees across various agencies. However, several categories of workers are actually excluded from this. So the people who are not eligible for this as it relates to federal employees is going to be members of the military. So active duty service members are not part of the federal civilian workforce restructuring. This also does not relate to postal workers as well. So anyone that works for the USPS operates under a different federal framework and it's excluded from this program. Immigration enforcement roles, so employees working in immigration enforcement, such as those in ICE or Border Patrol, are not eligible due to national security concerns and national security and critical positions as well. So jobs that are deemed to be essential to the national security or critical operations will not be eligible for this buyout. So each federal agency has the discretion to determine which positions fall under these categories that they are calling critical positions. And for employees that are unsure about their eligibility, agencies have now been instructed to be able to provide guidance based on internal assessments. So here is the incentive package that they're providing employees. So employees who voluntarily resign under this program by February 6th of 2025, they will receive the following. So currently they're saying that they should be able to receive 8 months of salary as a severance pay, regardless of their position or salary level. I'm going to have full retention of benefits, including health insurance, retirement contributions, and other applicable perks. And then exemption from in-person work requirements. So employees who opt into the program will be allowed to be able to work remotely or cease duties while still receiving compensation up until September 30 of 2025. So that means that participants will now have some financial security for 8 months while being able to plan their transition into the next career move. And one of the things that comes up with this is any employee who wishes to leave earlier, they can do so at any time within this period. So here is the procedure, and here is how this is currently being played out. So the Trump administration introduced a new federal email system that allows officials to be able to communicate directly with all federal employees. And on January 28th, 2025, there was an email that was titled Fork in the Road, which was sent to federal workers. And that subject line is pretty much identical to the same subject line that Elon Musk used when offering an ultimatum to Twitter employees in 2022. And the email contained a draft resignation letter for employees to review. And it also includes instructions saying that employees who wish to resign simply need to reply with the word resign, and a statement indicating that those who choose to stay are expected to demonstrate a renewed commitment to serving the administration's objectives. Additionally, the email also included a disclaimer warning employees that staying does not guarantee job security, while it assured that those whose positions are eliminated will be treated with dignity. And it also reinforced that workforce reductions and reclassifications are part of the broader federal restructuring efforts. So this buyout is being framed as an opportunity for those who do not wish to comply with new policies, specifically the return to office mandate, to be able to exit the workforce voluntarily rather than facing potential layoffs or terminations in the future. So again, one of the biggest things, they do want people to come back to the office. So here's the administration's perspective on this. The Trump administration views the buyout program as a key strategy to be able to reduce federal workforce, to improve efficiency. That's been a huge initiative that they've been pushing, and also to enforce a stricter workplace policy, specifically, like I mentioned, being able to come back into the office. And they're estimating that between 5 to 10% of federal employees will actually accept this buyout, which could lead to a projected 100 billion in tax savings annually. And these savings are expected to come from reduced payroll expenses, fewer benefit liabilities, and the elimination of underutilized positions within the federal government. And also, a senior administration official described the buyout as a necessary step into reforming the federal workforce, stating, and quoting here, that it says the government wide email being sent today is to make sure that all federal workers are on board with the new administration's plan to have federal employees in the office to adhere to higher standards. End quote. So this aligns with Trump's broader initiative to bring federal employees back into the office following the pandemic era remote policies. And the administration has been very vocal about this and its stance about that federal employees should be physically present in government offices rather than working remotely. And officials argue that the program gives employees a clear choice. It's either to commit to an in-person work or to have a new performance expectation or take the severance package and exit the workforce. Uh, Also, the administration has indicated that additional workforce restructuring measures may follow. So, including a reclassification of certain federal roles to at will status, making it easier to be able to terminate employees based on performance or policy alignment. So let's talk about how the union perceives this and what the reaction with all of this has been. So unions and employee advocacy groups have strongly opposed the buyout. They're calling it a forced resignation rather than a voluntarily severance package. Critics argue that the administration is using financial incentives and job security threats to pressure employees into quitting rather than engaging in negotiations or having an alternative workforce solution. And the American Federation of Government Employees, the largest federal worker union, has been really vocal about this and critiques this. And the president of that union has issued a statement condemning the buyout offer and is saying that purging federal government of dedicated career civil servants will have a vast unintended consequence that will cause chaos for the Americans who depend on a functioning federal government. And unions argue that the federal workforce has remained roughly about the same size since 1970, even as the US population has continued to grow by more than 100 million people. And they are saying that the shrinking workforce through this massive resignation is going to really cause even more efficiency issues and reduce government efficiency and slow the delivery of really critical services and operations. So it's going to create knowledge gaps as experienced employees are leaving now with no clear plan for how to replace them. It's also going to discourage talent from joining a federal workforce now, making recruitment and retention even more difficult in the future. And some federal employees have expressed concerns about the email's wording, which they felt like was designed to intimidate them into resigning. And there was actually an anonymous employee that sent this message to CNN and said, folks are that variously stunned, pissed, baffled, and a bit scared. And the National Treasury Employees Union also warned federal workers not to act hastily, stating in their memo, they said, make no mistake about it, this email is designed to entice or scare you into resigning from the federal government. And beyond union um, critiques and criticisms, policy experts and government watchdog organizations have raised legal and ethical questions as it relates to the buyout. So some argue that using severance package as a mass downsizing tool without congressional approval could be challenged in court. So there's been other questions as to whether the administration has fully considered the long-term impact on this on government services and national security. And it's really causing this big debate as it relates to this, right? So the buyout initiative is part of a larger shift in federal workforce policy under this administration. So along with this program, the White House has ordered all federal agencies to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs within 60 days. It also expanded the authority to reclassify federal positions as Schedule F roles, making them easier to fire, and then also push for more aggressive hiring reforms to prioritize political loyalty and policy alignment in federal staffing. So with the deadline coming up for February 6th of 2025, which literally in a few weeks, it's going to be critical to determine how many employees will end up leaving and how the unions and how overall the government's going to respond to this. So here's a couple of considerations for you if you are a federal employee. So if you are a federal employee facing this buyout decision, it's critical to really evaluate how this choice will impact your finances, your career, and your long-term security down the line. So here are some key factors to consider before making a final decision on this. All right. So you want to look at, number one, your financial impact. So the buyout offers about 8 months of salary as a severance pay, which provides temporary financial cushion. However, employees should also assess their current financial obligations, right? So you want to determine and see, do you have a mortgage, maybe student loans, maybe other major expenses that require stable income beyond the 8 months, okay? You also want to look at your emergency savings. So if you don't find a job quickly enough, you want to determine, do you have enough savings to be able to cover the expenses once the severance runs out? Also, you want to look at unemployment benefits. So unlike layoffs, employees who voluntarily resign may not be eligible for unemployment benefits in most states. So you just want to research your state's unemployment rules to see if you qualify. And a financial tip as it relates to this is you want to consider working with a financial advisor to really calculate and create a realistic budget and timeline for finding a new job before the severance period ends. Also, number two, one of the things that you want to consider is before resigning, you want to think about your long-term career goals and the job market conditions, right? So right now you want to look at the job availability, right? The private sector may not offer the same kind of job stabilities, especially with this. They may not offer the same kind of benefits or salaries that federal employment usually provides. Also, you want to look at the government rehiring policies as well. So if you leave voluntarily, you may face restrictions or longer wait times if you later decide to reapply for federal jobs. Also, you want to look at the resume impact. So will leaving now help or hurt your career trajectory in the future? If your current role is like a stepping stone to a better government position, it may make sense for you to be able to stay to be able to get a better option. So you just want to check your job openings in your industry before making a decision on this. A strong job market in your field may make it less risky as it relates to this. Also, you want to consider retirement and benefits impact. So resigning under this buyout program can have some really major impacts on your pension, your health insurance, and other benefits as well. You also want to look at your federal pension as well and see how that's going to be impacted. So your eligibility for retirement benefits may change based on how many years you've worked. If you close or if you're close to retiring, leaving early could actually reduce your pension payments. Also, you want to look at health insurance as well. So if you resign, you may lose your government subsidized health coverage unless you meet the retirement eligibility requirements as well. Also, you want to consider looking at understanding the cost of private healthcare, such as COBRA coverage, and it's going to be significantly more expensive. Also, looking at thrift savings plans as well. So employees who leave the government can keep their TSP accounts, but will no longer be able to receive agency contributions. So that's something for you to consider. Also, looking at early withdrawals may come as well with tax penalties. So there's a lot of things to consider. So a really important action step for you is you want to make sure you speak with your HR benefit specialist to fully understand how this resignation is going to impact your retirement, your health coverage, and your savings as well. Number four, you also want to look at job security if you stay. So for those of you who are considering staying in your current role, it's important to really understand the risks of the workforce restructuring, right? So as they mentioned in the email, there's going to be no guarantee of job security, right? So the administration has stated that the remaining employees who actually do decide to stay are not guaranteed that they're going to be able to be employed long term because they're continuing to make workforce cuts, reorganizations. So that is going to be a huge thing as well. Also know that they're also looking to do reclassifications of roles as well. So the government may convert more positions to at-will employment, making it easy for them to be able to terminate employees without cause. Also, you want to look at increased workplace scrutiny as well. So employees who actually do stay are going to face stricter performance evaluations, and you're going to be mandated and required to actually be in the office. So there's a lot of key considerations here as it relates to this. So if you choose to remain and stay, be prepared for potential changes in the future in your job responsibilities, location, and expectations. So overall, with the federal buyout program, represents probably one of the most significant shifts in federal workplace and workforce policies in decades. So whether you decide to accept the buyout or remain in your position is really a personal decision that really depends on your financial situation, your career goals, and also your risk tolerance. So like I mentioned, a couple of things that you want to make sure that you're doing. You want to stay up to date as it relates to this. You also want to have a conversation with your HR representative and also your financial advisor to get personal guidance as it relates to this. You also want to review job opportunities in both the private and public sector before making a final decision. You also want to consider long-term benefits and retirement planning before opting into doing this buyout. And this is a developing story. As it's coming out, I'm going to be sharing with some more updates for you. So you want to make sure you stay informed, make sure you subscribe, weigh out your options, and make your choice carefully. And best of luck to you with this, and take care. And I'll see you in the next one.